If you're the type of person that is only going outside and sitting under the stars to be able to see a ship and have no spiritual experience at all, but just be able to touch the ship, then your consciousness is staying in this level, so to speak, below the spaces. Now there's lots of UFO hunters out there in the world who are experiencing contact from that perspective. But we can say it's not very satisfying. So when we do this work with you, what we're doing is helping to give you tools to make it easier for you to pass through those spaces between the film. And when you pass through and you move into a more expanded reality, that's when the weird stuff starts happening. Stuff that doesn't adhere to the definitions of physical reality. That can be exciting for some people, it can be scary for others.
Ever wonder if there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe? Well, I have. I've been wondering since I was a kid. My name is Reuben Langdon, and on March 29th, 2007, in the middle of the day, I saw a number of strange objects in the sky. Coincidentally, I was working on the film Avatar at the time, playing an alien. And ever since then, I've been on a quest to find out if aliens really do exist, and if so, are they here with us? If beings of higher intelligence are here, what is their purpose? Why don't they make themselves more known? Why the secrecy? I've asked these questions to many experts, yet each seems to have a different theory. So I thought to myself, why not ask the aliens directly? So that's what I set out to do. Well, sort of.
At the point of evolution where you're at now with your society, is there as many options and choices available to you as we have here on humanity?
What kind of options and choices?
I feel like, again, looking in our sky, we have, we have the Draconian way of doing things, we have the Pleiadian way of doing things, the Syrian way of doing things, the Sasani, the Yael, all of these different ways, and
because when you're looking at consciousness as it is expressed in third density or even early fourth density, you can still see the idea of separate paths, the Draconian way or the Pleiadian way or the Syrian way.
Right.
But actually, as you move farther and farther into fourth density, the paths become a much wider road that contains them all, and that's when you start to see the path has always been the same. It just was shaped and smelled differently, so to speak, but it's always been the same path.
So in your guys' evolution state right now, you sort of just have maybe more awoken to that idea that the path is the same, therefore
it doesn't matter.
In our perception, it may look like we have all these choices.
Exactly.
But in reality, we're just going to end up going the one that we're going to feel excited about.
Exactly. And of course, my reality structure is very different. So when children are born in my world, we know right away what their path is, what their highest excitement is, as you've said. And that is nurtured. And the child is taught from a very young age to express that. And this is one of the reasons why in the contact work we do, we often bring children for the contact work with humans, because those in our society who will be the future ambassadors of contact on many worlds display those talents and those joys very early on.
So you're not forcing everybody to be a doctor and a lawyer.
No, exactly, exactly.
And I feel like we're moving out of that.
You are moving out of that. We know it
now.
doesn't look that way, but
Right.
you are.
Yeah. When it comes to working with all these different energies, and in past channelings you've talked about the Association of Worlds.
Yes.
And is your society part of this association?
Yes.
And is...
It's not like Star Trek.
It's not quite like Star Trek, though.
But
Right.
Star Trek is a wonderful metaphor for you to understand it.
I get it. And in the association, you've sort of moved out of battling and wars, and you can't really be part of the association if you have that sort of dominating enslavement idea?
Yes. However, forgive us for being picky, but we're going to just be picky about the words. It's not a matter of you can't be in our club,
Okay.
so to speak. Literally, those who are still in third density, still experiencing battles and conflicts, simply don't resonate with the idea that we are.
Okay.
So.
And would this be the same with higher density Draconian densities that are sort of, again, battling out the Orion War idea? Are they... Did the Association of Worlds, did it exist during the Orion Wars?
It was in a different form.
Okay.
Because the Orion Wars were really so very long ago.
Right.
And because of that, the only elder species were few and far between.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it was, they did have a version of it, but even then, it was the very clear idea that you cannot interfere. Because all third density species have to go through their process. And
So was the Orion Wars primarily a third density event?
it was a third density event, and it also carried over into the beginning phases of fourth density as well.
I see.
Until it became impossible to maintain the separation any longer.
I see. Yeah, and again, so going back to the densities, the idea of higher density versions of different races, and I keep bringing up the Draconians because I feel there's a lot of resonance with that archetypal energy right now on planet Earth, because we have such a mixed bag of that, and the reptilian energy DNA is in us, if I'm correct, and we are working through that karma, so to say. Karma in the terms that we're familiar with. So, at these higher density versions of Draconian energy, do they still hold those same archetypes that we're familiar with in third density?
No.
Okay.
No. You're going to find that the idea of battling,
Yes.
it wears itself out in the early phases of fourth density.
Okay.
So when you're talking about higher level Draconian consciousness, it has gone more into deep unconditional love.
Okay. So if you go to a 6th, 7th density Draconian being, vast differences between the third density version.
Yes, vast differences.
Okay. Probably we can't even conceptualize what those
Exactly.
What that is. But it's a very unique evolutionary path, very separate from the Pleiadian perspective.
Yes, exactly.
I see. I've gotten this download. I had a visitation from a mantis being, and this goes into the download that I got. I'm still trying to digest, and maybe you can help me with this. Is that the Draconian energy was sort of wanting to experience itself, wanted to evolve past 6th or 7th density, that the Draconians, that energy archetype, sort of had a hard time going past that density, that version of existence, because of its grasping onto a physical form.
To us, because the 4th density is the last in the way we measure,
that's right.
There is, once you move into 5th, 6th, or 7th, there no longer is physical bodies.
Okay.
Now, there have been many species who tried very hard to cling to physicality and not move into the non-physical expression in 5th density.
Maybe that...
It could be
that's that version. I
Yes.
guess the main thing I got, and I sort of assumed because of my understanding of densities, but the main thing I got was the Draconian energy, because of its resistance to go into non-physical reality, but there was still a portion of that energy that wanted to move into that energy. Therefore, it called upon the mantis beings to help help design a plan, and that's sort of what humanity is a plan to help move that consciousness into a non-physical reality, evolution. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, but you brought something up that is very key here.
Okay.
And you're calling them mantis beings.
Sure.
We call them founders.
Founders.
Same idea.
Okay.
And if we can, we'll just give you our definition of them from the bigger picture. So when the one consciousness began its fragmentation, that eventually became the souls that have the individual lives, one of the first fragments from the source was a collective beings that we call founders, that are kind of the architects. And when humans feel or perceive their energy, they see them as mantis or insectoid. That's one of the ways they appear.
Right.
Another way they appear are the very tall, willowy beings that...
was this Barbara Lamb's?
Yes, the spring onion beings.
Onion
Yes, it was
so these are
founder beings.
Founder beings, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Yes, and so these beings, known as the architects, are overseeing, so to speak, the building of the structure of the physical stage play, let's say. And so whenever a civilization or a species gets in trouble, so to speak, we have a tendency to call them for guidance.
Okay.
The Orions did, the Pleiades did, the Sirians did, the Zetas did, the Dracos did.
Right, okay. Yeah, the Zetas, I got that too. That did the Zetas even have the technology to travel interdimensionally to our timeline? I got that the Mantis helped out with that a little bit.
Yes. Zetas, though, they're quite unique, as you well know. And because they were able to harness such intense energy of mentality, they could do things in terms of the traveling through timelines that no other species could do.
Oh, really?
So that's one of the reasons why, too.
Fascinating.
They could do that.
And these mantis beings, often in abduction scenarios, temporary entertainment scenarios, show up sort of in the background.
Exactly.
And so I'm assuming this is probably why, and seen with many different races too. The Pleiadian, there's a
that's why.
mantis being with the Pleiadians.
That is why. They are like overseers.
Fascinating.
And not in a controlling way, of course.
And are they in a specific density, or they sort of can manifest in any density depending on who's in trouble?
We'd say primarily seventh density, because
Okay.
even though they're manifesting seemingly as a being, it's really a collective. So they cannot manifest physically, which is one of the reasons why, in a sense, now we're using this figuratively, they could channel through more physical beings. So if you have zetas accompanied by a mantis, it's not that the mantis is physically there, but the human is perceiving the energy
Right.
and can interpret it.
Right, yeah, that my sort of download was not a physical interaction, it was more of a data drop. 'Cause
Exactly.
that's the way it felt.
Exactly.
It's very, very unique. And I've, to date, it's been my really only conscious interaction with an extraterrestrial presence in that sense.
Well, how many days do you have in Sedona coming up? Yes?
Okay, I've got
We'll
a few
see
days.
about that.
All right, very cool. There's a lot of talk about inner earth beings, especially recently. It's sort of been in the consciousness. There's been a whistleblower who's been talking about interaction with inner earth beings, and we're finding out this new history that these beings have been there for millions of years, predating humanity and sort of staying low key. Now, are those beings fourth density beings, fourth density beings, or
Mostly fourth density beings.
Okay.
There are some that are fifth density, so they're not necessarily perceived as solid objects, so to speak,
see.
but as light energy. And they're much like what we said about the Anunnaki. They're really a collective of races.
Okay. So yeah, so there's many different races
Yes.
in the inner earth.
Yes.
And because there are different densities, different frequencies, if, for example, are we only now able to perceive them because we're shifting into this
Yes.
fourth density?
Yes.
And if we were to try, let's say in our past timelines of third density, even 100 years ago, if we were to try to burrow into the earth and try to find these beings, we would just hit rocks, per se?
You would not really have the contact, except in the cases of those spontaneous moments of openness, where you're actually not digging, so to speak, but you're open to the contact.
So when Admiral Byrd flew over the North Pole and saw the big hole, and then we have all these lures and stories of journey to the center of the earth,
Yes.
these sorts of stories.
Yes.
So that was just because the heart space was in the right space to go into that.
And the timing and many things, nexus point of timelines, many things, but not necessarily repeatable.
Okay.
Once the ego gets involved, yes.
Right. Do you guys interact with those fourth density beings?
Yes, there are certain ones that we do, because humans, this is not aimed at you, of course, but humans have a tendency of thinking they are the only things walking the earth, yes?
Right.
But the earth is quite populated on many levels of other dimensions. And in the ancient times, because there were so many beings on the planet, and during the times when those groups left, many stayed behind and began to build their own colonies. So you have especially one very populated colony is what we would call Syrians, ancient Syrians that stayed and experienced their ascension process here on your planet.
Wow.
And very often they're seen as blue.
Okay. And on a specific density reality, they're there, and
Yes.
do they coexist with us?
Yes.
They do.
Yes, and when you are in the space in your consciousness to connect with them, you most certainly can. We've spoke to many who have.
Okay. And do you work with them?
Sometimes,
do you guys
yes.
work with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially when we're doing contact work in areas where they are active, and they actually tend to be active in seismically active places,
Oh, okay.
volcanic areas.
So their origins is serious, but then they migrated to the Earth at some point in our history?
Their ancestors came here when the Syrians were here, and some of them stayed. Some of them also, now of course, in the cosmology that we've presented, the Syrian beings, the Orion beings, the Zeta beings, they all come from Vega lineage.
Okay.
So the very, very ancient Vegas who colonized Mars, also some stayed behind, came to Earth as well. So that's why we say there's a mix.
I see. So is Vega sort of our elders
Yes.
in that sense?
Yes. What is most known in your galactic family is what we call Vegan mysticism, which is a school of spirituality that was birthed in Vega millions and millions and millions of years ago, that passed to the different civilizations in your galactic family and also seeded on Earth. So the seeds of it on Earth, most specifically you see within some of the ancient Sanskrit and Hindu times.
Oh, okay.
And various seeds around the world. So it's quite prolific, vegan mysticism.
And going back to the Syrians, were they around during the time of Atlantis? The ones that stayed here on Earth?
Yes, yes they were.
And sort of when was Atlantis, I assume it was a mixed density bag of tricks.
Mixed density bag and mixed density, and mixed, a mixed drama going on.
Okay.
Lots of things going on.
Lots of things going on. And all of us, most of us, I guess, humans have had experiences from or simultaneous lifetimes there.
Yes.
That we're working through that karma now.
Yes.
And so the Syrians were there, and then that sort of event happened. Cataclysms, things like this.
All sorts of things.
And if it happened in third density reality, did it also happen in these other? If there's mixed densities interacting with each other, did it happen across the density board? The cataclysms, the disruptions.
We see what you're asking. Well, when we say mixed densities, we have to define that.
Okay.
Right now on Earth, you have mixed densities, even though it's not.
Yeah, no,
we don't see it.
We have the low end of the third and the high end of the
Exactly.
third and low end of the fourth.
Exactly, yeah. You have fifth density versions of yourselves and sixth, because again it's the boxes, the concentric nesting boxes. So in the Atlantean time, physically speaking, you did have a mix of third and fourth density beings, in a sense populating the same space-time, but you also had the other non-physical influences as well. So, and lots of different dramas, because everyone was playing out whatever it was they needed to play out for their own evolution. So it was one of those nexus points of evolution that were very important to, let's say, show you the trajectory for the next phase of your evolution. Because you could have, as a species, shifted at that time.
So I was wondering, in our native cultures in the past, we have had across the world, we've had obviously we've had pyramids, and we've had native cultures with high ideals, Native American Indians, Peruvian, Amazonian tribes that have really, when we look at it now, a highly evolved sense of being and way of life.
Yes.
Were those cultures, were those beings at a higher density? Were they fourth density?
Well,
or were they still third?
It depends on the era.
Okay.
Because civilizations have a tendency, physical civilizations will have a tendency of cycling from third to fourth density, sometimes repeating it
okay.
until the time is right for the shift.
I see.
Okay. But you're going to find that with the indigenous species on your planet, or the indigenous races, excuse us, on your planet, that even though they are halfway around the world from each other, you're struck by the similarities.
Correct.
and pyramids and practices and things such as that. Two main reasons for this. One is because of the ET influence, of course. Another is because a lot of those structures and practices came from Vegan mysticism, which came to Earth from Mars originally.
Okay.
So that's why there is, if you could really see the history of your solar system, you would see the continuity.
Right. The linear,
And then going all the way back to Vega.
I see. So the Vegans, did they colonize Mars?
Yes.
Oh.
They colonized Mars very early on. They colonized Mars well before the Earth was even stable for colonies.
Oh, okay. And the destruction of Mars, I've heard that there was, some say there was a nuclear event. There was, where, or is that just because of the density that we're in, we perceive it that way?
Yes, actually, we've given a session on this, but Jermaine, who gave the session, has never really spoken specifically about it. However, what he has said is that there was a series of events. Some were cataclysmic, with asteroids and things such as that. Some were political, some things, so everything perfect storm, you might say.
There's the idea of the talk of Maldek being a planet within our solar system that now makes up the Kuiper Belt.
Yes. Similar history to Mars.
Okay, I was going to say, did Mars come after the destruction of the Mars destruction?
It was parallel.
Parallel, okay.
Yes.
And then our moon, did it come from the Maldek civilization? Or is that, because I've heard different variations of the moon being artificial, put into place.
It's not artificial per se, but it's been, let's say, terraformed.
Terraformed, okay.
Yes.
Was it native to our planet, or was it sort of put there in place?
It was not native, let's say it was a wanderer.
Okay, a wanderer. And it found its position.
Yes.
And it fixed.
Yes.
Okay. Was there, so is it its own celestial being with consciousness?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
When we think of artificial, we think that there's been some sort of outside manipulation.
Yes.
Done to it.
Yes.
But even that outside artificial manipulation, in a way, is still part of that consciousness.
Yes.
Like Earth right now, we're making genetically modified foods and chemically enhancing and doing all kinds of things, but it's still naturally artificial.
There you go, yes. It doesn't mean it's not harmful necessarily, but it's the whole idea of what consciousness is. Consciousness permeates everything. So can you ever take a slice and make it not consciousness? No.
I see.
It's just a difference of whether it's dormant or aware of itself or not. Now, in terms of planets, however, and especially suns, you're going to find that what you call the core of the planet or the sun is an entry point, exit and entry point dimensionally. So this is why celestial bodies have consciousness. Because the consciousness, literally the consciousness of creation, breathes itself in and out through those portals in the center of the core of whether it's a sun or a planet. So, and we're talking, we're not necessarily talking about a rock flying in space.
Right. Yeah.
We're talking more about a planetary body that even perhaps has a slight gravitational field.
Doesn't necessarily mean the size of the...
Yes, it's not really dictated by size, because gravity has much more to it than just the size factor.
Okay. And
more often than not, you'll see the correlation, but it doesn't mean one is caused by the other.
Okay, that's what I thought. And in our sun's case, as you were saying, it's sort of a portal, and we're getting, that's our life force, is the sun. Now, if we were to move to another solar body galaxy or solar system. And would we then shift our being? Would we no longer become human? Would we become a new, because now we're getting our energy downloads from a new celestial being, would we become a new species?
Okay, so this is definitely hypothetical.
Yes.
Because at this point, humans cannot go and try it out, yes? And also because of the limitation of human consciousness to traverse space right now. Because right now, human consciousness is tied to the gravitational field of its planet and its sun. And this is a metaphor, a macrocosmic metaphor for how the ego is the anchor for you on a planet.
Okay.
Because the ego is like a black hole, same function, so to speak. However, as you move into fourth density, deeper and deeper into fourth density, and the anchor that is ego and individuality becomes metaphorically lighter, therefore you're able, in a sense, to escape the gravitational field and not be influenced so much by it. So space travel becomes no longer traveling on the surface of space. It instead becomes traveling through space or becoming one with space in a very, very different way. So we had to lay that groundwork in order to answer your question.
Okay.
Right now, if you were to be picked up and taken to another planet in another solar system, it would be very, very hard to make the adaptation.
Okay.
Okay? But if you were more deeper into fourth density in terms of your evolution, thus your egoic anchor was lighter, it would be easier for you to go through a metamorphosis if you were planted, so to speak, in another solar system. It would be easier.
And is that going to the hybrid programs for the Zetas, is that part of that creating new beings, so to say, and populating new planets on new star systems or new solar systems with new DNA?
Yes. It's one of the reasons why hybridization is the better chosen method than colonization.
I see.
Unless the circumstances are such that where you're colonizing is very similar.
Right.
Hybridization is much more appropriate, which is why the original Lyrans in the very ancient times began the programs on Earth, the genetic work on Earth, because they needed to create that hybridization for their future incarnations. Colonization was not a comfortable option.
I see. So when we even, what if it was within our solar system, like Mars, if we were to go to Mars or go to Venus, is that
It would be easier. However, and again, we're speaking metaphorically. This is basically, we're going to make this simple so you understand, but let's say each of the planets represents an energy of a chakra, okay? Earth being solar plexus chakra. Let's say then that you moved to another planet that represents another chakra. Basically, what you're going to experience is a similar structure, but the aspects of that chakra will need to come into play more or be activated more. And that's the kind of the system, the macrocosmic system in a given solar system.
I see. And if we were to do that, we would need probably technology to aid in that life force sustaining, not just air and everything else, but energetically we would either have to do the work ourselves or
but actually we see that the most important thing you would need to colonize a moon of Jupiter or whatever is actually mentors, extraterrestrial mentors.
I see. To help with
the adaptation.
Explain the more than what we physically know right now, because we only see such a small sliver of what is.
Exactly.
I see.
Exactly.
And they could help out with that.
Yes.
Now, I've heard stories that humanity has breakaway civilization of a secret space program per se, that we've been, individuals from humanity in the 50s and 60s worked together to sort of start colonizing our solar system and
Yes.
start doing this already. And a lot of this whistleblower stuff is coming out now. And we're sort of being made aware, and then hopefully we can join our own family back with us. But they had, I guess they did have Draconian assistance in their evolution to colonize. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, we're going to say there's truth and distortion.
Okay.
Okay? Now, when truth starts coming out, there is a whole faction on your world that works very hard to distort the truth through sensationalistic things or red herrings, as you say. So there is also a lot of that. The researchers themselves, having good intentions, are given what seems to be for them credible information that isn't really credible. So the truth gets buried at another layer. So there's a lot of different things. This is why we don't talk so much about this stuff. It's also not our mission, so to speak. However, we can say just very basically, yes, secret space programs, yes, the powers that be, if you will, are quite aware that Mars was once a thriving civilization, that there are things happening on the moon, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Very good. We don't need to go into
Yes.
more details. It's
Not our forte.
Not yet. Not until it'll all develop in the way it's supposed to develop.
Yes.
The Japanese energy healing Reiki. Lisa told me the mountain to go to where I could find where it was developed. But was that I think the founder even said it came from the cosmos.
Yes.
It was downloaded to him through this sort of a cosmic energy. Did that come from a specific star system or beings?
Yes. Again, we very often use some of the star names as archetypes, but we see that the legends of Mount Kurama, which is the mountain we're talking about in Kyoto, are that beings from Venus.
Okay.
Originally, 2 million years ago, came to that mountain. Now, the question then is, did the founder of Reiki tap into Venus energy? We would say that Venus itself is a portal through which other cosmic energy can come. We see the Reiki energy as being much more connected to Arcturus energy.
Oh, okay.
It's very, very balanced and very powerful in its simplicity.
And is that a representation then of Arcturus, just balanced and simple?
Balanced, simple. You have also termed it the angelic realm. It's a realm of integration where mental, emotional, male, female, etc. is all balanced. It is also an energy that is very easy for humans to tap into when they allow themselves to do so.
I've heard analogies. They're like the Jedis in Star Wars. You know, the Arcturians are sort of always wearing robes and sort of in that.
Well, that's how they're seen. Yes,
we perceive them
because
as
mostly
sort of
they're sixth density, so they're not physical in that way any longer.
Very masterful, and even I've heard throughout our galaxy and universe, many other beings sort of go there to do pilgrimages and homework and and go to. Has Sasha, have you been to the Arcturian system to do some studying work? Or?
Well, in my time frame, you might say high Arcturian civilization is long gone.
Oh. Okay.
Because they have gone into their ascension process.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So when people are talking about that, they are talking about, again, we're going off the timelines.
Sure.
A past era
right.
of the civilization.
When there was a physical
yes.
version to
yes.
visit. I see. I'm not sure if it was you who mentioned this, but the Sirius energy, the way they sort of their evolution is they tapped into their emotional body through their mental pineal gland direction, and that
yes.
was sort of their evolutionary state. Took them a while, but through the mental body, they were actually able to access their emotional bodies.
Yes. They took the back door.
They took the back door, which is fascinating, and I see so many similarities in humanity where we get very mental.
Yes.
And I was wondering, I've been working a lot with the Amazonian medicine ayahuasca, and the chemical compound which induces a psychedelic trance state is DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is very, I see it very third eye going into that state. And that sort of resonated when I heard that download, because it feels that's a similar path using this medicine in a mental way to connect to the emotional body.
Yes, it's similar to the work the Syrians did, but with a booster rocket.
So the ayahuasca is with a booster rocket.
The ayahuasca is the booster rocket.
Okay.
The Syrians, being that their lineage is vegan, are very hardcore, and they didn't, for the most of the time, didn't like to use help,
Sure.
so to speak. But humans like shortcuts sometimes,
Okay.
and we don't mean that in any way disrespectful.
Right.
But it's like a booster rocket for the same idea.
I see.
If it's used properly, of course.
Right. And the energy of the ayahuasca spirit that the shamans speak of, this grandmother earth energy, now that's the way I've always seen her, is this almost a collective unconditional love, Mother Earth energy.
Yes.
That being, I was wondering on a galactic scale, how do the other ET races interact with that energy? Do they interact, and is that part of the Earth's collective conscious?
It is part of the Earth's collective consciousness, and it goes back to some of what we were talking about in terms of how every planet, every sun has its own consciousness.
Okay.
And so from the point of view of an ET, such as myself, whenever we come to a planet to do any type of work as an offering or as a service, we have to get permission from that collective consciousness.
I see.
First and foremost. So you as humans are moving toward this as well in terms of recognizing your own planet as a living consciousness. And of course, once you do, everything changes.
Oh, I already have, and tapping into that energy it's so beautiful, and I'm working with the medicine and working with the shamans and our indigenous cultures who have been working with this energy for thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
With or without the medicine, the medicine is just a permission slip.
Exactly.
To talk to this energy, but it's so beautiful, and I'm just assuming that collective energy is interacting with the Pleiadian collective energies and other Syrian collectives.
Yes.
On a greater galactic scale of.
We have to.
Yeah.
We have to do it that way.
So would she be part of the Association of Worlds?
Yes. Yes.
I see. Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you so much. So many
now that we
questions.
hear the wheels going with that
there's
one.
no more.
Yes.
I know I could go on forever, but I want to honor everybody's time, and we've got lots of great stuff to share here. So thank you so much for everything. I'll leave it open just for one last thing. If Sasha wants to share anything for me, I heard that maybe
my brother.
I heard that earlier. So
there is another you in my time stream, my dear. And he's much more flamboyant than you. It's a he.
Flamboyant.
Flamboyant,
Okay.
actually. We don't mean, maybe not what you're imagining.
Okay.
He doesn't wear rainbow streamers or anything.
Right.
But he's very excited and gregarious, even more than you are as a human. And whenever he's involved a lot in some of the contact work. In general, introducing new planets to the galactic community. And whenever he is present, he, let's say, lightens the mood. Not that it's ever a somber mood,
Sure.
but it's always, he is always a welcome invite to a party, let's say.
Excellent.
So just tap into that and see what you can get.
I always love parties.
Excellent.
Enlightening the mood. So that's very much so. I resonate with that. Does he have a name?
Let's see. Again, of course, it would have to be translated into an English concept.
Okay.
No, of course. We are receiving Japanese.
Oh.
Or Japanese sound, at least.
Sure.
We have the first two syllables, just a moment. Haruki.
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 Haruki. Oh, very nice. Nice to know.
Recognizing that that is not really his name, much
Sure.
as Sasha is not my name.
Okay.
But
energetically,
yes.
A close vibrational
Yes.
match. Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, thank you for the very stimulating conversation. We have enjoyed it quite much, and thank you, Ronald, also
Yes.
for your energy. We can feel you over there. And then for now, we wish you much, first of all, much excitement on your journey and luck with the project, yes.
Thank you.
Much love. Holy crap!
How was that?
Wow, it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Time flew by.
It flew by, totally flew by.